And I think at the end of the day, never, ever, ever get angry. When you get angry, your IQ goes down and you cannot be an effective team member.
Well, they didn't teach me that in law school, but it seems like pretty good advice. Hey there, folks. If we have not yet had a chance to meet, I'm Chad Roberts with eDiscovery Co-Counsel. We're a law firm that helps plaintiffs' lawyers with electronic discovery and complex litigation, and it's all we do. So after a COVID pause, we're thrilled to be resuming our Team Builder series that features visits with lawyers who have a proven track record of leading large teams of lawyers to a common goal. That's also something that's not taught in law school, and it is a rare skill. We couldn't be any more fortunate for someone to resume this series with us than Gale Pearson of the Fears Nachawati firm in Dallas. She's known to many of you, and if you've ever been fortunate enough to work with Gale on a project, you'll understand why she has a great reputation as an effective leader and an effective team builder. Enough of the intro. Let's just get right to our visit. Here's Gale.
Hello, my name is Gale Pearson, and I'm senior attorney with Fears Nachawati, located in both Dallas, Texas, and Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm very happy to be here.
Gale, thanks very much. And this is a series called the Team Builder series, and this particular series is about working with groups of lawyers.
All right.
All right. So can we just talk about, just a little bit of your bio and your history and how you came to be what you're doing now and how it all got started?
Sure. I actually started out wanting to explore the world through a microscope. So my first passion is actually in the clinical laboratory, and I'm actually a board-certified clinical scientist. I spent 10 years working in a laboratory, studying cell structure, working on issues such as immunotoxicity and things of that nature, and really, really enjoyed working in the laboratory. We worked in a teaching hospital, and my job really was to teach med students the principles of immunology and how they work within the blood circulatory system. So that was very exciting, and I started traveling with the American Society of Clinical Pathologists, presenting ideas along with our team leaders, and really enjoyed getting out and started to understand that the laboratory is a great place to study through a microscope, but I seemed to have an interest in getting out and meeting more people. And I just decided, my father was an attorney, wanted me to become an attorney for a very long time. I had no interest in it, and maybe overnight I had an epiphany, is I'm gonna go to law school. And so that's really what drove me to law school. And I was warned by my director that I should never become a scum-sucking plaintiff's attorney.
Oh my, okay, and you took that to heart.
And I took that to heart and became a plaintiff's attorney, which was in my heart. It really is the way I'm wired.
Yes.
And it seemed in law school that the easiest course is really related to someone getting hurt and the types of remedies available to that person getting hurt.
Yeah.
It just seemed like I had a natural ability to sort out some complex issues and put them together and find a result that's favorable to the person I was representing, which is usually the injured.
And always practiced in Minneapolis, pretty much?
I began, yes, that's where I moved home to raise my family and started a practice with my father, and just went to town.
Fun. You've worked on a lot of complex litigation because you have a practice at a very high level now, and you've worked with a lot of projects that require a lot of moving parts and a lot of different people and herding up all these plaintiffs' lawyers for a common goal. Are there any common denominators of how you do that, or just takeaways that you've absorbed through the years of having to do that?
I think both. I think a lot of it is your experience, and you learn by the things that you've not done well or have not worked out well, and you've also learned by the things that actually made the process go really smoothly. But I step back, first of all, and look at the big picture in my brain, and I figure out what do I need to get to where I need to be? I need a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I need people to help me work on that. And those people need to have a lot of different personalities. I need a planner, a doer, a thinker, an organizer, a detailed person, a person who thinks lofty ideas, and a person that is optimistic, that's always going to make our team going, even when things are getting hard and dark. And I need to have a couple of those people in each bucket, but I only need one organizer. And I do best when I'm the organizer and everyone gets along well and really follows my plan of organization. So that works well for any person who has a big project and needs to have it a positive outcome. And I try to look at the big picture. I have a plan, and then I implement that plan, and I monitor whether the implementation of that plan is going well. I set deadlines. I want to have each component of my plan have a certain time frame. I need to have expectations of what I want to complete during that time. So I do have just a general, non-detailed concept of how I approach a challenge and how I finish that challenge.
I'm with you.
So then I'll fill in the details depending on the project. So if it's the law, I need to know how I need to prove my case. So that's step one. What do I need to prove it? And what do I have? And what do I need? And what are those gaps? What are those challenges that I need to face? And I take those on first. So I'm not going to leave the difficult things till last. I put them in the front, because at the end you run out of energy, but at the end you've got so much drive to get it done well, and I found that's where my mind works best, and that's how I can really see the path to success. So I start with the hard stuff. I think the planning, the amount of time that you focus on the planning is really driven by your experience and how much of this stuff do you already know. So when I started out practicing, I did a lot more planning because I had so many unknowns. Today I have a lot less unknowns. I kind of know how something, even though I might not know how every component of that something's going to work out, I have a general idea of how long a project's going to take. I have a general idea of how long it takes to look at so many documents. So I have that concept. I have a pretty strong concept of projects and how many people it will take and how long it will take to do that project. So those are built-in shortcuts that I've developed over time. So I've got a lot of formulas in my head.
Sure.
But setting that aside, I don't think there's a moment that I'm awake that I'm not, if I'm involved in a project, that I'm not thinking about how to make this successful. So I'm not thinking necessarily about how to make it easy, because then I've already given up. Right. But I want to know how to make it successful. And so probably every free moment that I have when I'm in a project, I do that. I work on, in my head, planning. And sometimes I've got ideas, I'll write them down. I'll bounce those ideas off from folks. There's a lot of feedback I depend on also. So I have this system that's called really the pulse meeting. So when I start a project, we have what's called a pulse meeting with my team. And we meet every single day, and we stand up for 15 minutes and we talk about what each person is going to do towards that project in that day. We find out if someone needs help. We find out if someone has help to give. But we want to get a sense of what's going on, and that way everyone else kind of sees where we're at. They understand the big picture. As time moves on, we have those meetings maybe twice a week and eventually once a week, but no fewer than once a week. We connect with the people who are working on the case, and we find out what everyone is doing. So everyone's brain, so to speak, is traveling in the same direction, and we hope to hit the finish line at the same time. It also allows challenges to come up. So we talk about challenges. What's a problem that we didn't anticipate? How is something not working out the way we thought it would be? So that pulse meeting, I think, is the single most important thing to start a project out right.
We call it a Scrum.
A Scrum?
It's an agile term. It's a term of art. They call it a Scrum, and 15 minutes a day.
Standing up. No one sits with donuts.
Yeah, you can't go over, you can't, it's not chit chat time. It's got to be in and out and back to work. And
Absolutely.
it's been an interesting new little thing we do as our team has grown.
And you know what it does is it helps the team camaraderie as well. Because if you don't have folks that get along, I don't care how talented you are, there is no stars.
Right.
We are just a team. And so that it gets people excited, and if they're all working on the same project in the same direction, it's really a lot smoother. If we've got Death Stars, someone who is all about them and they know it all, and they're going to start criticizing, the project has failed. So it allows us to really keep that positive energy going, and really it's a quality control component as well.
What about metrics? Are there formal or informal ways that you sort of measure your progress on things? In the construction industry, they have a Gantt chart. I don't know if you see those where there's strips of, there's strips of this thing can't start until that one's done, so we got to bird dog the beginning and end of this one before we can do that one. And it's kind of a graphic for how the flow of everything's going to go. But in terms of metrics, do you have any formal or informal way that you kind of keep track of things?
Well, there's an external pressure on us with those metrics, and then internal. So the external pressure would be our court deadlines.
Yes.
So if we have particular court deadlines, that really is an external metric that we have to comply with. So that sometimes is what drives our timing. But most of the time I have a sense of how long I want a particular project to take. And I'll say, I want this done in 90 days. And so we start working as if we're going to be finished in those 90 days. And we always have the fudge factor.
Right.
You don't always get done. Hopefully you get done before that time. So when I end the project, I'll have the same type of metric, but it will look different. So right now I'm working on a project where we're 100 days out, and we are going to be finished with this project within 100 days. So I may have an Excel spreadsheet that will have, we're going to have, and I have a list of things that we have to complete before we're done. So I'm also very much a list person. So everything is on a list. So we have a list of things that need to be done by the end of 100 days, which is an arbitrary day that I picked because I just want this project done. And you have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if you don't have an end, you're never going to finish a project. So for that, I think there's some things that need to be laid out linear when you talk about construction, where you have to have the foundation before you can do the walls, and you have to have the electrical in before you can do the sheetrock. So here, there are some projects that you do have to have it linear. We have to write the brief that we submit to the court to get approval, a final approval. So there's some linear components, but most of what we do is things that can be done simultaneously. So we can have 2 or 3 things going on at the same time, so we can finish, and we may assign different people to do that depending on what's the best fit for their character and what they want to do. By the end of the project, everyone is either loving what they do or really sick of what they do, and sometimes you have to shift folks around to get something done effectively.
On the spectrum of like a formal process, where do you find yourself on that? For example, one of the things that takes a lot of discipline is a post-project sort of button-up. And that's rare because you're already challenged to move on to the next project. And so it's hard to sort of carve out some time to look backwards on the project you've just finished and sort of consolidate your gains in terms of what you've learned or the mistakes you've made and roll it into your process for the next one. How formal are you on the process part of it? Is it mostly up here in your mind, having done this a number of years, you know what the process is, or do you have, or is there any part of it that you use checklists for or anything like that?
Yeah, it is a checklist, because without a checklist, you're going to miss something. And then I invite everyone to participate in that checklist. So that checklist gets circulated among the team. And we have 2 weeks for them to, based on their experience. And I'm assuming I've got seasoned attorneys on my team, and that's a must. So based on everyone's experience with this project, what am I missing? What can be added? What do we need to take away? What is redundant? So we have that type of process. When we're all finished, it's a practice I developed in the laboratory. So when I worked in the laboratory, you have quality control, and you essentially do everything 3 times to make sure it gets correct. So I do have that internal, that's how I was initially trained,
Yes.
That's how I approach things. But things will still go wrong.
Sure.
So if something goes wrong, the conversation isn't condemnation or punishment, it's how do we avoid it? Again, it's kind of like the root cause analysis
Yes.
that companies will do. So we look to see what worked well, and I may have one other person, or I may do it in my head. What went well, what did not go well, and how do we make sure whatever did not go well not happen again? But that self-assessment, or that project assessment I think is important to move on and do a better job the next time. So I have the quality control, I have the self-assessment, and I avoid at all costs criticism of people if they've blown it. Sometimes we make mistakes. That negativity is destructive, and I find every way I can to make it an opportunity to improve rather than a moment to feel bad about yourself. So I think that invites and makes it a safe place for people to be candid and say, I don't think this worked well, or I did this and I don't think I did it well, without inviting, criticism or admonishment. And
Right.
I think that's you can't get someone to do well if they're angry or upset with themselves. You have to get strengths out of people, and you don't do that by criticism.
For a young lawyer who may be at a firm that is just starting out and is not running projects at the level you are yet, but sees the professional challenge of doing complex litigation, because it requires all kinds of skill sets. The best lawyers in this game are in that, some of the best. So any advice for a young lawyer who might be watching this that is toiling away somewhere in the pyramid of one of your groups, for them to develop the kinds of skills you've acquired and have a reputation for, of being a team builder? Any thoughts for how you would look back to yourself 20 years ago and say, here's what you need to keep doing more of, and here's what you need to quit worrying about so much?
Listen to everyone around you. Be a really good listener. Think every moment that you're on a project. Engage your brain. You were hired for your brain. We're relying on your brain to be working, and we want it to be working hard. So think, keep thinking, and keep thinking about what are we doing? What is our goal? How do I support that goal? And finally, be really patient with yourself and your colleagues. When I was brand new, I think I was probably a really irritating attorney, because I thought we engaged and we win by combative behavior. And I learned that was the most ineffective way to get really across the finish line. So be patient with your colleagues, be understanding and gracious with your opponents, but think and work as hard as you possibly can, and don't confuse IQ and hard work. You don't get a great project. You can get a great project without a high IQ, but you can't get a great project without hard work. And you really have to, and then love your job, do things, speak. That I think is the most important thing that made this job interesting to me. I looked for every opportunity I could speak, that I could share my information. I would go to high schools, I would go to community centers, everything that I could possibly do to help others understand the answers to their questions, because mostly our community wants answers and they think attorneys can answer those questions for them. So to the extent I had something I could talk about, I would. And the feedback really allowed me to grow and get confidence, and most important, the energy to keep doing what I wanted to do. And I think at the end of the day, never, ever, ever get angry. When you get angry, your IQ goes down, and you cannot be an effective team member.
Gale, thanks for spending time with us today. And this is really a gem. I mean, if you don't do these things once in a while, someone probably couldn't just walk up to you at AAJ and say, would you sit down and give me some advice? But you've done that with us today, and we really appreciate it. And good luck with all your other projects going forward. And thanks for all your help.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to share. Thank you so much.
You bet.